Hi, this is Yvonne Wesa, short sale advocate. Today we're going to talk a little bit about an example of some of the things that caused the housing collapse in 2007, which also precipitated the rise in short sales and foreclosures. I'm going to tell you a story because I followed this particular client from the sale of his home through the process. And then when he ran into a hardship, I was there for the short sale, and the story is ultimately interesting for everyone. And I'm particularly sharing this because so many times people, even lenders and some banks, have stressed the fact that the people that caused the rise and the fall of the housing market in 2007 was because they were not qualified to purchase. They were losers. And I have been doing this over 15 years, and that is not at all what I find. I find these people are wonderful. They were totally qualified, but the circumstances surrounding the purchase of the homes back in 2004, 5, and 6 at the top of the housing market invited these kinds of situations. So again, a short sale happens when a homeowner has a situation where they have to sell their home, but the market will not give them enough to pay off their current mortgage. So in 2004, 5, and 6, the top of the housing market, we went a little crazy. Homes were appraised for basically what the contract offer was, which caused, in some areas in other states like California, Nevada, Florida, and Arizona, which were the beginning of the problem, about 18 months prior to the 2007 beginning of the collapse of the housing market in the St. Louis area. The appraisals of current homes in some of those states were 30–40% higher than the market value. In our area, we never reach the kind of bubble. We're very conservative. But when you are selling, taking an offer on a home that is even 10 or 15% higher than the market, you're pushing values up and inflating the market a little bit. So here's my story. The government in the 2004, 5, and 6 encouraged the banks and wanted the banks and lenders to use adjustable rate mortgages, ARMs, on most of the loans for first-time home buyers. This was used, I don't know what the percentages are, but a lot. I was the mortgage broker for a real estate company during these years, for the real estate arm of a mortgage company that specialized in first-time home buyers. Most of our clients were given adjustable rate mortgages. Now, the adjustable rate mortgage wasn't a bad thing. People did have to qualify. The situation with an adjustable rate mortgage, which we made very clear to our clients, was that they had to refinance in 2 years. If they didn't, their interest went up 3% every 3 months. And that was the rub. So this particular client, I believe he was 29 years old. He had had a job with a major health company, one of the big ones, for 10 years. He did qualify. He did get down payment mortgage assistance, but he was imminently qualified to buy his home. We found the cutest home in Glasgow Village. At that time, Glasgow Village was really a hot spot for investors. They were coming in and buying homes that homeowners had been in maybe 25, 30 or more years, needed updating. Maybe they were downsizing, they had raised their families and they were moving to maybe senior facilities or something else. So these homes, as they became available, were grabbed by investors who paid $60,000, $70,000, put $20,000 in, and the homes were basically selling for between $95,000 and $110,000. So they were perfect for first-time homebuyers. This particular home had been renovated interior and exterior. It looked like a display home. My buyer fell in love with the home. He was so excited. Now, his initial interest rate was probably, I'm guessing 7%, which was fairly typical for this kind of a loan back then. He knew he purchased in January of 2005. He knew that he had to start looking at refinancing like September, October of 2006, because in January of 2007, he had to refinance. There was no ifs, ands, or buts about it, because if he didn't, his interest rate would rise 3% every 3 months. That was the end of the story for me at that time, because I knew he had moved in, he loved the home, until I got a phone call from him in June of 2007. So here's what happened. After 10 years, 11 years with his company, they downsized, they let a lot of people go. He got another job right away, made just about the same money. But when he went to refinance, he did not meet, well, he was supposed to be in the same job, or if he changed jobs in the same field, he did not qualify. So he was denied refinancing. His interest rate went up, and I have these figures in front of me, so I'm going to make sure I have the right figures. So he went from paying somewhere around $800, which would have been his principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. Raising that 3%, in January, he was now paying $1,050. In March, he was paying $1,365, and in June, he was paying $1,680. When he called me, he had 3 jobs. He wanted to keep his home. He was so desperate. He knew I did short sales. That's not what he wanted, but that was the situation. He didn't have a choice. He could not stay in the home because he could not get financing. To top that, the home value was $95,000. I listed the home. He had missed 1 mortgage payment. He didn't have enough money to buy food after he paid these exorbitant interest rates on this little home. He had invested, I did some figuring, and somewhere between 18 and 19,000 he had paid in principal and interest. That was what the bank actually received from him in the 2.5 years that he owned the home, not splitting out the principal or the interest, but the bank did receive that much money. I immediately received a $94,000 and a second offer for $95,000 within 24 hours of putting it on the market. And I have to say, when I walked in to list his home, I said it looked like a display home. When he bought it, it looked even better when I went to list the home. He had the dining room table set with linen and crystal and place settings, and you could just tell the home looked fantastic. I was as brokenhearted that he had to sell that home as he was. He really deserved to stay in his home. But we submitted the offer, the higher offer, to the bank, and I called 3 or 4 days later to make sure they had received the offer, and I was informed that they had sent him a foreclosure auction date notice. I asked them to send me a copy of the letter. He had been saving all of his mail for me, every piece of mail he got, because I wanted to see who was soliciting and what they were trying to sell or present to people who were facing short sale. There was no letter. I asked the bank to send me a copy. I got a copy of a letter that did not have a date, but did say in the body of the letter that within 30 days of the date of this letter, then there was a date of July 24th, where his house would be sold on the courthouse steps in auction. So there wasn't any way to do a short sale because the home was going to face foreclosure. No one coached him. I did tell him that he could get keys for cash, and that means that he negotiates with the realtor who contacts him about the foreclosure and arranges a reasonable date, usually within 30 to 45 days, where he will vacate the home and present the keys to the realtor in representing the bank in exchange for, at that time, probably $1,000 or $1,500 maximum. I think around $1,000 in this case, so that the bank wouldn't have to go through any court proceedings to get him out of the house. But at least he got a little bit of money for moving expenses. As if all this situation wasn't bad enough, what happened after that was really awful. The bank at that time was, and FHA, who backed the loan, they got money from AIG, which is the government insurance that was guaranteeing the loans. So they were pretty satisfied. Most of their money had been recouped. So in July, remember we had in July, we had 2 offers for $94,000 or $95,000. I have reason to believe that that value was probably correct even in October. Certainly in $92,000, $93,000. This bank put the home on the market for $30,000, and that's what they sold it for. That is what happened to Glasgow Village, all the zip codes in North County, because anyone who wanted to buy, after a few of these foreclosures happened in Glasgow Village, the housing prices just collapsed. When you have 4 or 5 foreclosures And that is the comp. That's the comparable for anyone putting their home on the market, and there aren't homes valued anymore at 90 to 100 or 110,000. It escalated the crisis with the housing market, and those areas still have not recovered. I think banks they could have done a lot of things differently. If they had refinanced, for instance, in January at the higher rate of 7% compared to anything that went on since then, this home buyer would have still been in his home, probably on the road to paying his mortgage off. It was one of those homes that he could have stayed in even if he married, had a family. It was really a great home. This happened around the country where banks took homes. Missouri is one of the easiest states to foreclose on. Very limited regulation. So we got hit really hard with foreclosures. The short sales, I vowed to help people stay out of foreclosure or auction, and pretty much have been successful in doing that over my career. I think it has been 8 or 9 years since I've had one of my own files go into foreclosure. Sometimes it takes a while and it's very hard on homeowners, but I just wanted to kind of make way for these people that face hardships in their lives. And a short sale is a good choice. It does not mean they're bad people. I know especially my older people, they are so ashamed when they have to choose a short sale because they were brought up thinking that they should make their mortgage payment rather than buy food or medications. And it's still quite disgraceful for them. And I hope by the time that we go through the process, they realize that it is just a one of life's options. It doesn't mean you're a bad person. So if you're a realtor and you have a situation with a homeowner, and even an elderly homeowner that says they don't want to do a short sale or a foreclosure, and you know that they're not able to pay for food or medications or other choices, give us a call, and we certainly will try to call with them or meet with your client and see if we can't give them some options where they feel more comfortable in knowing that thousands and thousands of people have had to make the same choices in a pinch, and that it's not their fault. It just life happens sometimes, and this is a good option. So if you have questions, you're a homeowner and you're facing a hardship that's causing you to think about selling your home, we'd be happy to talk with you and give you your options, your choices, and the penalties, the effects of a short sale are minimal compared to a foreclosure, deed in lieu, or definitely don't just walk away from your home. That's hard on the entire community, your subdivision, and it's very hard on your credit, and it takes a long time to recoup from that. So give us a call. Contact us at 314-590-3785 or go to www.shortsaleadvocatesllc.com. Yvonne Wesa, Short Sale Advocates. Have a great day.